The sound meter didn't just spike. It flatlined. I stood in the center of the glass-walled conference room, the prototype headset heavy in my hands, watching the CEO's face contort into something between pity and disgust. "Ilara," he said, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for children who bring macaroni art to a board meeting. "Noise cancellation is a product. What you're pitching, sonic vitamins, restorative frequencies for municipal grids, this isn't engineering, this is a wellness blog." The room erupted, not in applause, in laughter. Sharp, brittle, expensive laughter from men whose portfolios were louder than their consciences. "Pack your things," he said, tapping a manicured finger on the table. "We build highways, not lullabies." I walked out of that building with a cardboard box and a ringing in my ears that had nothing to do with decibels. It was the sound of a door slamming shut on the only career I'd ever known. But the real volume, that started the second I pulled into my parents' driveway 2 hours later. I needed a soft place to land. I needed my mother's pot roast and my father's gruff, "You'll figure it out." Instead, I got the kitchen table tribunal. My father didn't look up from his newspaper. So, the sound witch got fired. My brother, Mark, leaned against the fridge, scrolling his phone. "I told you acoustics was a dead end. Should have stuck to HVAC like Dad said. At least air conditioning pays the mortgage." "Therapeutic urban sound design," I said, my voice trembling, not from shame but from the sheer force of holding back the tide. "It's evidence-based, heart rate variability, cortisol reduction. I can design a park that lowers blood pressure just by the way the wind hits the sculptures." My mother snorted, stirring tea with a clink that sounded like a gavel. "Therapeutic sound design. Right. And I suppose the squirrels pay you in acorns. Ilara, you're 32. You have a master's from MIT. You are an embarrassment to this family's name. Go get a real job. Stop chasing fairy dust." Fairy dust. The word hung in the air, heavier than the lead aprons I used to wear in the anechoic chamber. I didn't argue. Arguing requires a listener. They weren't listening. They were measuring me, finding me wanting, and billing me for the disappointment. I left the house that night. I didn't say goodbye. I just drove until the streetlights turned into stars. The next 2 years were silent, not peaceful. Silent in the way a surgeon's scalpel is silent before it cuts. I moved into a converted shipping container on the edge of a forgotten industrial zone in a city that had forgotten it had edges. No salary, no safety net. Just me, a stack of second-hand measurement gear, and a theory that the world was sick because it sounded wrong. The peers I'd left behind called it hobbyist nonsense. "Acoustic gardening," they sneered on LinkedIn. "Playing with wind chimes while the real engineers build bridges." Let them laugh. I was busy listening to the heartbeat of a dying neighborhood. I started with an abandoned lot, a scar of cracked asphalt and rusted rebar. The city sold it to me for $1 and a prayer. They thought I was crazy. I knew I was desperate. I didn't plant trees. Not at first. I planted resonance. I installed helical resonators tuned to the low-frequency hum of the distant highway, neutralizing the subsonic stressor that keeps a body in fight or flight. I built parabolic reflectors into the fences to catch the high-frequency shatter of sirens and traffic, diffusing them into white noise that mimics rainfall. I embedded piezoelectric crystals into the pathways. Footsteps generated the power to run the subtle speakers hidden in the hollow logs, playing back the infrasound of a cathedral choir, the specific 110 Hz frequency shown to synchronize brain hemispheres. The neighbors called the cops on me 3 times. Construction noise, weird vibrations. That woman is burying speakers in the dirt. I kept going. I lived on instant noodles and the stubborn, terrifying belief that physics doesn't care about your opinion. 6 months in, the crime rate on that block dropped 18%. Domestic disturbance calls, 0. The ER intake for anxiety-related chest pains from the surrounding zip code dipped. A journalist from the city paper showed up. She didn't laugh. She cried. She sat on my hobbyist bench, the one tuned to the Schumann resonance, and fell asleep for 20 minutes. Woke up and asked for my card. The article didn't say, "Local woman plays with dirt." It said, "The engineer who muted the city's migraine." Then the grants came, the municipal contracts, the TED Talk invitation I declined because I was too busy tuning a hospital courtyard so chemo patients could sleep without sedatives. I built the whispering walls in the financial district, a facade that eats the roar of Wall Street and exhales a soundscape of deep ocean currents. Productivity metrics went up. Sick days went down. I built the lullaby line, a light rail corridor where the track vibration itself is dampened into a harmonic drone that puts commuters into alpha wave states. Ridership doubled. I wasn't an acoustic engineer anymore. I was a spatial pharmacist. I dispensed calm in decibels. 10 years. 10 years of dirt under my fingernails, of sleeping on vibration isolation platforms I built myself, of eating crow until I developed a taste for it. Then came the invitation, the Urban Innovation Summit. Keynote speaker, me. They flew me business class, put me in the suite. The irony was a physical weight in my chest. The night before the talk, I drove the rental car to the old neighborhood. The street looked smaller. The houses looked tired. My parents' place had new siding, a BMW in the driveway. Mark's truck lifted and loud parked on the grass. I sat in the car for a long time, the engine off, the silence rushing in. Why am I here? Not for an apology. Apologies are just noise. I came for the measurement. I needed to see if the structure could hold the weight of what I'd become. I walked up the path. The door opened before I knocked. My mother, older, grayer, the tea tremor in her hand. "Alara," she whispered. "Hi, Mom," she stepped back. "Your father's in the den. Mark is here." I walked in. The den smelled of old paper and liniment. My father sat in his recliner, the TV muted, staring at a wall of certificates. His certificates: Professional Engineer, Project Manager of the Year, 1998, 2002, 2010. He didn't stand. "You're on the TV," he said flat. "The summit thing, Visionary of the Decade. Visionary of the Year, Dad, close enough." He grunted. Hobbyist nonsense pays well, apparently. The hook. There it was, the bait. 10 years ago I would have bitten, I would have screamed, I changed lives, I healed a neighborhood. Today, I just smiled, a small, private thing. It pays the mortgage. And a few others. Mark walked in, beer in hand. He looked at my tailored coat, the watch that cost more than his truck. "So the sound which made it big. What do you actually do? Sell white noise machines on Amazon?" I looked at him, at the tension in his jaw, the way his knuckles whitened on the can. He was hurting, loudly. His whole biology was screaming in a frequency only I could hear. "No, Mark," I said softly. "I build places where people like you can finally breathe." The silence stretched. My father cleared his throat. "Your mother made pot roast, if you're staying." "I'm not staying," I said. "I have a keynote at 9 tomorrow. I flew in to show you something before I go." I pulled the tablet from my bag. Not the keynote slides, a live feed. "Tap the screen, Dad," he frowned, jabbing a finger. The screen bloomed. It was a drone feed, real time, high definition. "Where is this?" he asked. "4 blocks from here," I said. "The old Miller Foundry site. The brownfield the city condemned in 9. The one you said would never sell, Dad, the cancer on the landscape." The drone swept low. There were no weeds, no rust. There were trees. 30-foot oaks transplanted by helicopter, their roots wrapped in mycelium-infused biochar. There were wetlands sparkling, filtering the runoff. There were paths porous, glowing faintly with bioluminescent aggregate. And there were people. Hundreds of them, families, old couples, kids on bikes, a yoga class on the great lawn, a string quartet playing in the pavilion, acoustic. No amps needed because the pavilion was the amplifier. A perfect parabola of rammed earth and timber I had designed down to the grain orientation. But the sound. God, the sound. Through the tablet speakers, the audio feed came through clean. No highway roar. No industrial hum, just breath, wind in leaves, water over stones. The quartet's cello vibrating in the chest cavity. Laughter. Low, easy conversation. The sound of human nervous systems down-regulating in real time. Heart rate variability data, I said, tapping a corner overlay. Live biometric aggregate from the wearable consent group. Average resting heart rate, 52 beats per minute. Cortisol estimates, lowest quartile national average. This place, it's a clinical intervention disguised as a park. My father stared. The TV forgotten, the certificates forgotten. He sold the patent for the highway dampeners to the DOT last month, Mark muttered, reading the chyron on the feed. 50 million, you own the IP on the rail line tuning. I licensed it, I corrected gently. The city owns the infrastructure. I just gave them the key. My mother made a small sound, a gasp. She pressed a hand to her chest. Ilara, the foundry. We used to sneak cigarettes behind the smokestacks. It smelled like burning tires and regret. Now it smells like rain and pine, I said, and it sounds like safety. My father stood up then, slow, knees popping. He walked to the tablet. His finger hovered over the image of the pavilion, the one tuned to 110 hertz, the frequency of the ancient chant, the frequency of healing. You did this, he said. Not a question, a realization. With sound. With physics, Dad, with the thing you told me was a toy, the thing they fired me for. I built a pharmacy that has no pills, a hospital with no walls. He turned, looked at me. Really looked. For the first time in 32 years, I saw the engineer in him wake up. He saw the math. He saw the rigor. He saw the result. The mockery, he said, voice cracking, the dam breaking. The fairy dust. I thought you were throwing your life away. I thought I was protecting you from failure. You were protecting me from you, I said, no heat, just fact. But I didn't fail, I just changed the metric. You measure success in load-bearing walls and quarterly returns. I measure it in heartbeats saved, in sleep restored, in the quiet that lets a mother hear her baby breathe. I stepped closer. The park opens to the public next week. It's named the Sanctuary. There's a bench in the center, the founder's bench. It's tuned to 432 hertz. Pythagorean tuning. It resonates with the geometry of the space. Sit on it for 10 minutes and your heart rate synchronizes with the Earth's rotation. I put the tablet down on the side table. I didn't come for an apology. I came to show you the data. You were wrong about the field. You were wrong about the market, and you were wrong about me. I turned to leave, hand on the doorknob. Ilara, my father's voice. Rough, raw, yeah, Dad. The pot roast, it's your favorite, gravy's lumpy, just how you hate it. I looked back. My mother was crying silently, wiping her eyes with the corner of her apron. Mark was staring at the floor, the beer forgotten, his shoulders shaking with something that wasn't laughter. The silence in that room wasn't empty anymore. It was full, heavy with the weight of truth finally landing. It was the sound of a foundation shifting. I smiled, real this time, reaching my eyes. Lumpy gravy sounds perfect, Dad. Let me just take my boots off. I've been walking on concrete for 10 years. It's nice to be somewhere that finally absorbs the impact. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. The greatest vindication isn't the world knowing your name. It's the moment the people who doubted you finally hear you and realize the silence they tried to bury you in was actually the incubator where your revolution grew. I sat down. The gravy was lumpy. It tasted like victory.